Hello, and welcome to Unity Church on the Mountain from my home. The title of the talk today is When Anxiety Becomes Overwhelming. I think we can all identify times in our life when we've felt anxiety, when we've let anxiety get control of our consciousness and just begin this cycle. And when that cycle begins, it's difficult to find the way out of it because it feeds on itself and brings in other things that we might be anxious about so that it just grows and continues to grow. I'm reminded of a joke, just to make things a little more lighthearted. So there was a man who anxiety became, he just felt continuously that there was something wrong, that something bad was fixing to happen. And so he went to his therapist. And his therapist says, what you have is anxiety, not spider sense. Okay. So there's a characteristic, though, that we should see about this anxiety. And I notice it when I feel it myself. Anxiety is inevitably about something that has not happened yet. This worry sits in that something will happen. But it's not here right now. Occasionally, probably not as often, anxiety is about something that already has happened. But usually when that's the case, it's about how that will affect something that's still coming in the future. And so I'm called to a Bible verse, and I would like to share that with you today. This is from the Lamsa translation in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 6, and verse 34. Therefore, do not worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will look after itself. Sufficient for each day is its own trouble. You see, we live in a world that is constant change. This relative world where our bodies exist, where we are expressions of the divine. But our truth of ourself, the center of our being, is in connection with the absolute. It is the absolute from where we get our divinity, and it is our connection with the absolute that gives us the calm center that allows us in the middle of right now, whatever is going on, to find the peace that we need. In relation to this, I'm reminded of the Serenity Prayer. This can be one of our spiritual tools to help us when anxiety becomes overwhelming. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Recently, I woke up. In fact, it was Thursday morning. I woke up and I had no voice. I couldn't talk above a whisper. And I knew I had to sing on Sunday. And I had this talk that was due. And so there were these triggers that came on me because I couldn't speak a word above a whisper. And so I felt this anxiety come on me. Perhaps this was there as a demonstration for me of how I could deal with the anxiety. But what did I do when I felt this? Immediately to mind came the golden key. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. And so I affirmed some of my favorite affirmations. I went to the prayer of the heart and just brought myself back to the present moment, knowing my wholeness, that at the core of me was wholeness, and giving myself to Spirit by saying, yes, I am an instrument of your peace. I will take care of my body in these few days with this knowing that everything will be in divine order, and that by Sunday I will have my voice back. I think you can hear right now that I have my voice. And I'll say this, when I went to bed last night, it still wasn't back. But yet this morning, here it is. I just turned it over into God's lap, and I did the things that I could. Taking care, trying not to speak loudly, trying not to, my voice wouldn't let me, but not trying to force it. Just allowing myself to speak where I could at the level that was given to me at the time. Drinking plenty of fluid, just doing those simple things to take care of my body. And a knowing that in this relative world, everything is constantly changing. And so it passed. And it was inevitable that it would pass. And I knew that even if I didn't have my full voice come Sunday morning, that somehow it would work out and it would be okay. That really, yes, all is in divine order. So I stopped thinking about and dwelling on the difficulty that I didn't have this voice. And I turned it over to God and I affirmed, yes, I am your instrument in this world. And I know that all is in divine order. When I woke up this morning, I was in the shower. I haven't said a word yet. I don't know, at this time, I didn't know yet where my voice was at. But I was in the shower, and I have in the shower a little rubber frog. And it sits on the shelf next to the shampoo. And I looked over at that frog, and I thought about what frog means to me. And I haven't shared this in a while, so I'd like to share this with you. It's just another one of the spiritual tools that I have to help me to stop thinking about the difficulty and think about God instead. So for me, I have some frogs around in different places because it is fearlessly rely on God. I've heard it said faithfully rely on God, but I really like fearlessly rely on God. So I have a frog that's on my rearview mirror in my car. It's just a little bitty frog. I found it when I was walking on a labyrinth. It was just laying there in the mud, kind of almost covered up. But it had a perfect little yellow ribbon tied to it, and I used that ribbon to tie it to my rearview mirror, and it's been there ever since. So I have different places around the house where there's little frogs. I think I might even have one in here. No, it looks like it may have moved. But different little frogs, just to remind me to stop thinking about the difficulty and think about God instead. And fearlessly rely on God. Because it's that fear that brings upon so many negative emotions in our life. From anxiety to anger to addictions even. And this fear that keeps coming back can lead us into these pathways, these habits that become out of our control, and they bring us on a downward spiral. But if we can break that spiral by thinking about God instead, knowing that right now it's okay, and that even if we're in the middle of some trial or tribulation, that it will pass. We live in the changing world. And the absolute in us, that is at the core of our being, is good. And it is okay right now. So when anxiety becomes overwhelming, we can use this as an opportunity, because anxiety is something that's hard to miss. The effects that it has on our body can't be ignored. The tightness, the sick feeling, the nervous tension that gets in our muscles. And that feeling is like nothing else. And so we can pick up on that very easily and see that it's happening and become aware that anxiety is becoming overwhelming. And now we have the opportunity to bring ourselves back to center. And we can use one of our spiritual tools, the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. We can practice the golden key. Stop thinking about the difficulty, whatever it is, and think about God instead. And we can remember that frog. Maybe place some frogs around where we're going to see them throughout the day and just fearlessly rely on God. We can turn that problem over to God. Especially if there's nothing we can do about it. And if it's something that's in the future, it's not even happened. There is nothing that we can do about it. But if our wisdom tells us there is, why, we can take that action. And by taking that action, we can relieve some of this fear. And we can bring the scales back to balance in favor of a positive outcome. But if there's nothing that we can do about it, we give it to God. And then we do the same thing. We're tipping that balance into a favorable outcome. But if we remain and let anxiety continue in this cycle, in these mental rhythmic patterns that go on, that aren't so harmonious but scattered and fearful, something is bound to happen that's not so positive. We're not operating from our best and highest place. But when we can stop thinking about the difficulty and think about God instead, say yes to God and turn it over to the highest power within us and allow that to come through us, taking the action that is ours to do, having the courage to do it, having the serenity, though, at the same time to accept there's nothing I can do about this right now. I will give this over to divine order, and I will let it be what it is. And I will ask for help, divine wisdom that's already here within me. I will ask for help to know what it is that I can do and what it is that I need to turn over to God. So just be aware. You can see this anxiety coming on by how it makes your body feel. Accept it, that this is what is happening. Don't try to fight it. Just let that feeling be what it is, and then look at where is it coming from. Ask for help. Stop thinking about the difficulty and give it to God. Do what is mine to do, and then just let go of the rest. So this is your invitation. And I would like to close with the prayer for protection. It's also a really great tool for when anxiety becomes overwhelming. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Wherever I am, God is. Thank you so much. And just be aware.